Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Lauterbach. I hope you had a good time off. What I'm going to do today is go over the learning checklist and explain the Writing to Westfield Part 3. This is your last paragraph that you're going to have to write. And so we'll go over that with the Amplify slides 20 through 21, then 24 through 26. And then what we'll do is we'll take the information we gathered from those slides to write our third and final paragraph. Now, I want to remind you that all three paragraphs we're going to take to write a formal letter to the people of Westfield to explain to them what is in their water. So it's important that you do a good job on this last paragraph, and more importantly, that maybe you go back to your previous writing pieces and double check that all your information is correct and valid. That way, when we get to the final writing, it's an easy copy paste into that final writing document. Other than that, you may have to work harder to remember what those sentences were. But we're going to work through it and we'll be fine. So let's talk about our Writing to Westfield Part 3. If I open up my Amplify slides, I'm going to start on slide 20. Okay, so slide 20 here is another email from Dr. Young, our lead chemist. She says, thanks for your explanations. The people of Westfield now understand how the rust in their water could have formed from a chemical reaction between the iron pipes and fertilizer. However, However, before the townspeople can consider this mystery solved, they need to be certain that the chemical reaction between the iron pipes and the fertilizer didn't produce any other substances in addition to the rust, which could be dangerous to drink. You've done a good job so far, so I'm assigning you this final investigation. Review the atomic scale model below, which is similar to the model you created in Chapter 2. This model shows the reaction that formed the rust. Is there any other substance in the water? You should be able to, is there any other substance in the water? You should be able to find some clues here. So let's make some notes here, okay? In my notes column, I need to say that we are looking to make sure no other substances were produced during the chemical reaction. Now, you may remember from our burning of the steel wool lab and our key concepts that in a reaction, all atoms that make up the reactants are rearranged to form the products, all the atoms, and that during a chemical reaction, atoms cannot be created or destroyed. So we need to have these two concepts in our mind so that when we look at this model, we can verify that all atoms are accounted for. So let's look at the model. I'm going to go to slide 21. Okay, let's look at slide 21. So here's slide 21, review of the reaction. We have our iron pipe atoms and our fertilizer atoms, and these are the reactants that will produce the products. Now, did all the atoms that make up both the reactants in the iron pipes and the fertilizers, are they all found on the product side? So I'm going to look at each element to verify that. So on the products, I've got 2 iron. I also have 2 iron on the reactant side. On the products, I have 1, 2, 3 oxygen atoms. And on the reactant side, I also have 1, 2, 3 oxygen atoms. But I do notice that I have a sodium atom and a nitrogen atom that's on the reactant side, but it is not found on the product side. So did all the atoms that make up both the reactants rearrange to form the product? The answer is no, they did not. Not all of the atoms are accounted for. So somewhere the sodium and the nitrogen have to be found within the water. So no, all the atoms are not accounted for. The sodium, which is Na, and nitrogen are not, I'm going to say not identified, because it's not that they disappeared or they're missing, they've just not been identified yet. So we need to find out where they are. That's our goal, okay? So we need to figure out where the sodium and the nitrogen are within the water, okay? So at this point, I'm going to go to slide 24 because this is slide 22 and 23 that had to do with understanding that matter is not created or destroyed, atoms are just rearranged. So that was just kind of building on that lesson. So we're going to go to 24. So slide 24 is another email from Dr. Young. So now that we know that nitrogen and sodium are missing, we let her know that, and they went on to examine the information more. So based on your suggestion, I decided to run more tests on the water sample I took from Westfield. As it turns out, you were right. The reaction between the iron pipes and the fertilizer seemed to have produced another substance beside rust. I hadn't noticed it before because it dissolved in the water, but once I removed the substance from the solution, I was able to observe some of its properties. The unknown substance is a solid yellow powder at room temperature. It has no odor. Based on these observations, I was able to narrow down a list of possible substances to those that share all of these properties. I think that the substance is either sodium nitrate or potassium chromate. I'd like you to determine which of these substances is the unknown substance in Westfield's water. I'm sending along an atomic scale model of each substance for you to use as evidence. Once you've identified the substance, be sure to inform the people of Westfield. So let's take some notes here. Okay, we know that the substance is, we know that the new mystery substance is yellow powder, solid, and no odor. It is going to be either, oops, it's going to be either sodium nitrate or potassium chromate. We're going to look at the atoms. That make up both substances to identify the mystery product. Okay, so let's look at those substances. So that's slide 24. So now I'm going to go to slide 25. Okay, slide 25. So here I have sodium nitrite present, and I have potassium chromate present. And I want to look at the atoms and think about what they have similar. So examine what they have similar. So they're both made up of repeating groups of atoms. They're both extended structures, meaning that they have atoms that branch out from each other. They are all containing oxygen atoms. And I can even add the properties listed down below, that they're yellow, solid at room temperature, and odorless. So those are all things that they have in common. They're made of repeating groups of atoms. They are made of extended structures. They all have oxygen atoms present. They're yellow, solid at room temperature, and odorless. Now, what do they have different? That's the key. What do they have different? Well, I noticed that the sodium nitrite has the sodium atom and a nitrogen atom. The potassium chromate, however, has two potassium atoms and a chromium atom to make up this structure. So those are two distinct different elements, which means they are made of different properties. So that would be a key difference here, that the sodium nitrate has sodium and nitrogen present, but the potassium chromate has two potassium atoms and one chromium atom present. So that's what I would write in the difference column. So let's look closely here. The people of Westfield are still waiting to answer their question. What was produced during the reaction between the iron pipes and the fertilizer? To help answer this question, Dr. Young has provided you with an atomic scale modeling tool. Examine this model tool and use it to answer the question below. And then copy and paste it within your reaction. So I'm going to open up the modeling tool. Remember, you have to be in presentation mode to get to the link. And it's going to ask you to make a copy. I already have it pulled up though, so I'm going to go straight to this. Okay, so here, it's very similar to that modeling tool we used previously. We've got our before, which are the reactants. Right here is where we're going to write what happened during the chemical change. And then our after side, which is the product itself. Okay, so I already know that rust is a product. So I'm going to click and drag that rust already over here. Okay, because I already know that's a product. What I need to do is I need to look closely and think about the atoms that were initially missing. We were missing the nitrogen and the sodium and the nitrogen atoms. So here I've got 1, 2, 3 oxygen, 1, 2, 3, that makes sense. And I've got my iron here, 1, 2, okay, so that makes sense. So what is going to make up, let me pull the repeating groups of iron oxide here. What is going to make up my mystery product? Would it be the sodium nitrite or the potassium chromate? If I look closely at my before, I don't see any potassium and I do not see any chromium in my reactants, my before side. So that tells me through my observations and what I know through my key concept that matter is not created or destroyed. Atoms are rearranged from their product side, that the sodium nitrite is the mystery product that we are missing. So this right here, sodium nitrite, is the element that we are missing. So in my little reaction here, I'm going to make a text box and I'm going to explain what happened. Okay, that the iron atoms in the pipe reacted with the fertilizer sodium nitrate during a chemical reaction. This produced rust, which is called iron oxide, and sodium nitrite as a product. Here is our reaction. And we know this to be true because all of the elements are found on both the reactant side and the product side. Now, some of you may be particular in saying, well, all the atoms need to be accounted for. I only have 1 sodium and 1 nitrogen here. And here we've got 2 more. So yes, I would need to make extra copies over in this area to make sure that it's all balanced and fair. So once I have that, I'm going to screenshot this into my slide. Exit. Paste. Okay, and obviously I'm going to need to adjust the sizing format so that it's easier to see. There we go. That's better. All right, and that kind of ties into the question, what else was produced? Well, what was produced? It would be the sodium nitrite that was produced. That's the other mystery item that we now have. So now that we've identified the mystery product, you're going to go to your writing of Westfield, and just like before, you're going to write a paragraph going over the other mystery item, okay? So it's finally time to explain to the people of Westfield what is in their water, both the rust and the sodium nitrate. So you're going to state your claim, which we have 2 claims here, that it was only rust or that it was rust in another substance. Again, you can just copy and paste this directly into your paragraph. Then you're going to use evidence from the model to create model you created to support your claim, along with key concepts 8 and 9. So you want to use the sentence you created in your model. You also want to use key concepts 8 and 9, that during a reaction, all atoms that make up the reactants rearrange to form the products, and that atoms cannot be created or destroyed. Both of these need to be in your paragraph to help support that both rust and sodium nitrate was formed. The last thing you need to do is make a concluding statement saying that in the chemical reaction, rust and sodium nitrate were produced from the fertilizer and the iron pipes. And then, as always, highlight the vocabulary terms inside your paragraph. It's going to be another 12-point assessment grade. Do your best in doing this. I will review it. And then what we'll do is we'll take this last paragraph and we'll make it into one final letter. So this is it right here. So if you have any questions or concerns, again, reach out to me, email, call. I am here to help. Other than that, have a great day.